Loren has been part of our cruises for, how many of you guys have been on?
This is my 10th one.
He's been on just about all of them. This is his 10th cruise with the Keto Low Carb cruises. Don and I have enjoyed his and Kathleen's friendship for many years, and we have watched him become a different man each year that he joined us. So I think you will really enjoy his story. He has a lot of tips and things that can help us because he is literally a walking reminder or whatever. I'll let you continue on. He's an amazing, we love him to death.
Honey, take your thing off.
Here's the clicker there.
Okay, I'm Loren Lundquist. I lost some weight and I'm here to tell you about it.
Oh, I gotta tell you.
I'm going to claim that I was a normal weight baby. My
Loren.
birth announcement says I was 6 pounds 13 ounces. I was delivered by parachute rather than by stork, my father being an Army Air Corps pilot at the time. You'll notice that's not set up for a very good parachute landing fall. And indeed it was a rough landing. The doctor grabbed me incorrectly with the forceps, damaged my left eye and my left inner ear. I don't have binocular depth perception. My left eye tracks out to the right. I see out of it, but I see two images. They're not fused together. So anything involving a ball is, it just doesn't work. Go out and close one eye and play catch sometime. Add to that some strong prescription glasses fairly early on, and a less than stellar balance because of the inner ear. You know, I can walk, ride a bicycle, but I've never been able to skate or surf or do things that take really fine balance control. So I tended toward a very sedentary and scholarly path rather than an athletic one. And not surprisingly, I was pretty soon the chubby guy. There's a doctor who asked people who were raised in the 40s, 50s, 60s, how many fat kids were in your first grade class? And he says the answer is invariably 0 or 1. 1. I stayed away from scales. I'm sure I was weighed and whatnot, but I don't remember it, and I don't remember the numbers. Until I went to ROTC summer camp in the summer of '63, between my junior and senior year at Ohio State. I weighed 210 pounds. I was 5 foot 10 3/4 inches tall. BMI wasn't around back then, but it would be 29.5, which is the high end of overweight, almost obese, according to the things today. And I figured, based on remembrance of clothes, that kind of thing, I probably got to that weight the summer after I turned 16, the summer between my sophomore and junior year in high school. And then I stayed at 210 and stayed at that until nearly 40. The Army considered me to be overweight. In their infinite wisdom, they said that my ideal weight was 157.5 pounds, which was a BMI of 22.1. To pass the annual physical, I had to get down to 197, which meant 13 pounds off every year. And I could never keep it off. And it got harder and harder and harder to get down and make that point to where I'd pass the physical. Toward the end, I couldn't even hold a 210. So I retired from the Army at the end of '84 and hired on as a physicist at Los Alamos Scientific Laboratory. And I was fed up with weight control, goals, and whatnot. Probably the worst decision of my life, but I just blanked it out. I ate what I wanted, I didn't care. My job there put emphasis on extra time, early, late, whatnot. We're doing computer simulations. If you did an 8 to 5 job, you get about 5 sets running a week. But if you come in early in the morning and see if they're running, if they have, set in a new set, and same in the evening and a couple times on the weekend, I could get anywhere from 17 to 20 problems run, tripling, quadrupling my output. And the guy who gets there and is ready first gets the test assets. Because there's always things that are up for grabs because somebody isn't ready. I got up to 370 pounds by the end of the 1980s. That's a picture of me taken in 2008, but that's typical of what I weighed from 1989 really until 2012. I did try to lose weight several times. Atkins had been the only thing that even partially worked for me, and I went back to Atkins. One attempt. I went for a year and a half. I was very consistent about the Atkins. I went for about 6 months, stalled out, and I got so desperate I called the Atkins clinic. And really lucky, instead of getting some secretary, there was a meeting going on. Jackie Eberstein, Atkins head nurse, picked up the phone and talked to me. Set up a telephone consultation with her, and then met with her twice on Atkins cruises. I managed to lose a total of 70 pounds in a year and a half. I forgot what it was that threw me off that I got off it, but homeostasis pulled me right back to 370. I can't prove it, but I do believe that the body has a set point or a thermostat, and if you haven't reset it, it pulls you back. This time it hurt me. I'll show you a bit in a little bit where it helped me, but fall of 2009, my wife became ill, and I lost her about 9 months later. My response to stress is to eat. And I thought I'd seen some stress in Vietnam and preparing for nuclear tests, but I hadn't seen anything like what I saw those 9 months. And I ate accordingly. After she was gone, the stress still seemed to be there. I don't think I was gaining weight, but I sure wasn't losing any. In October, I went to visit my brother in Connecticut. I felt miserable the entire time. Minor just moving around, living was not very comfortable. We had tickets to the opening Patriots game that year, but we parked about 1.5 miles from the stadium. I thought I was going to die walking in. I managed to break 2 seats in the stadium. I left at the beginning of the third quarter because I knew what a hike it was going to be back to the car. And I barely got there before he did. When I got home, I weighed myself. I was at an all-time high, 412.4 pounds. BMI was at least 60.8. I say at least here because I'm not positive what my height was. From 63 through 84, every physical I took with the Army, I was 5 foot 10 3/4 inches tall. 2 years after this, I measured my height, and I was 5 foot 9. I'd lost 1 3/4 inches. I figured that at my tall height, I was probably shorter than that, which would drive the BMI number higher, but I'm saying at least 60.8. Again, homeostasis. As soon as I gave it a chance, went back on Atkins, my body yanked me back to 370. I don't know why the set point didn't go up. It usually does when you add weight, but I don't think it did here. I came across a thing for the low carb cruise late in 2011, just surfing on the web, and I decided I wanted to go on that. That's what I looked like when I walked on the ship, 370 pounds. It was a fantastic cruise, lots of high-powered speakers. Dave Asbury, the bulletproof guy, was there. Dr. William Davis, the wheat belly guy, was there. There were several others. I came away from that convinced not to do a diet, but a lifestyle change to ketogenic, grain-free. Of course, back then it was mostly called low carb, either high fat or healthy fat, and unstated was moderate protein. By the way, it took me almost 2 months to lose weight after I went keto. I was working with a doctor I met on the cruise, and she told me that not to expect to lose weight until my blood sugars were down to about 150. Mine were up in the 220s at that time, and they didn't come down right away. She said, look, let's assume you're eating keto, you've cut your insulin, now the door to the fat cell is open, fat can come out. The body says, why take fat out? I've got all the energy I need here in the bloodstream, so just leave it there. She said, when you get to 150, you'll start seeing weight loss. And about the 7th week on keto, I was in the 220s on Monday, I was in the 120s on Friday, and I started losing weight. So don't get discouraged if you start out and it takes a bit. I was down to about 330 in February of 14 when I was diagnosed with a tumor on my right kidney. Had to be removed. It turned out that luckily the doctor said because of my size he was going to do it the old-fashioned way with the big incision rather than the small one. I'd be dead if he'd gone with the small one. When he got in there, he lifted the kidney, saw that the tumor had compromised the connection to the vena cava, put the operation on hold, which he couldn't have done the other way, and scrambled a vascular surgeon to come assist him. It still tore, massive bleed, damaged the other kidney. They poured 33 units of blood products through me in 2.5 hours. I'm told that the average woman has 8 units, the average man has 9. Because of my size, I probably had 11. So that's like totally changing out every drop of blood in my body 3 times over in 2.5 hours. He told me he thought he'd lost me twice, even with the 2 of them working. And my wife told I'd be in the recovery room in an hour. She's out in the waiting room wondering. And nobody's telling her anything. Of course, I didn't know about it.
Luckily you were asleep, yeah.
I went to my nephrologist and told him about low carb, high fat, and managed to pull him down off the ceiling with moderate protein. And he finally agreed that that probably wasn't going to kill me then. I want to tell you about this guy. He's seen me lose a couple 100 pounds of weight. And he said to me early on, he said, look, your global flow rate is just barely above dialysis right now. What you need to do is lose some weight because it's proportional to your body weight. Cut your body weight in half, double your global flow rate. Well, I cut my weight in half. I'm sure he didn't expect me to do that. But at any rate, when he saw the weight I was losing, about 2 years in, he asked me if I could put something together that he could give to some of his other patients. And a while after that, about 6 months after that, he said he'd talk to Dr. Nally, Dr. Adam Nally, who I met on the 2014 cruise and is now my primary care physician. I talked to Dr. Nally. He said, oh yeah, he called up and I said he could come over any night after work, let me know when. He came over and he spent 3.5 hours with me, and I went through all the diet stuff with him. Dr. Nally talks like a machine gun. The class he gives to his incoming patients takes an hour, and he goes through everything. He must have talked this guy's ears off. But the result was that he told me that he sent 4 of his obese patients to Dr. Nally. I don't know what's become of that. Of course, he's not going to talk to me about patients other than to say he sent them. I get the impression more people have gone, but I'd really like to know what the outcome is, but I can't ask that. About 6 months ago, he said, I take a selfie with my patients when they reach 100 years old. I have 3 selfies now. He said, I'd like to take a selfie with you. And the time before last, about 2 months ago, I went in, the medical assistant took me back to do the vitals and whatnot, and she says, Dr. Arif talks to everybody about you. He talks to the staff, he talks to the doctors, he even talks to the other patients about you. He talks about you all the time. My oncologist, on the other hand, she is a good oncologist. She's doing well at managing my cancer, but we've got to the point where she doesn't ask and I don't tell. Okay, so I lost a bunch of weight down to 260 in June of 2015, and I plateaued for 1.5 years. I was conscientious. I was down to eating 1 meal a day. I was eating keto. I was doing intermittent fasting without even knowing I was doing it. And I could not get through that. As a matter of fact, I was inching up. In December, I read Dr. Fung's The Obesity Code, and I decided to add fasting to my effort. I started off with an 8-day fast. I did several other 1- and 2-day fasts. I dropped 33 pounds in 2 months. I dropped so much that my gait changed and I got bursitis. That went away in about a week. But you should go on Diet Doctor. Dr. Fung has an 8 short video series on fasting. Even if you have no intention of fasting, you ought to do it for the education on why, what it is, and how. Before I did this, I sat down and I read the chapter out of his book to my wife, to Kathleen. And it really changed her thinking about it. She was thinking you needed 3 meals a day. Now her thinking is much freer on that. She will go a couple meals a day or 1 meal a day, or sometimes even fast. You ought to do it for the education. You really should, even if you have no intention of fasting. It's only an hour for all 8 of them. I reached a significant milestone 2 years ago. I talked about it 2 years ago on the first Keto101 cruise. I was down to half of my all-time high weight. 206.1, having lost 206.3. And this May, I reached a more than 60-year low of 158 pounds. BMI at 24. You can say, well, it's taken me 8.5 years to do it, 7 of them on keto, but I wish I hadn't waited till age 70 to learn about it. I could have done so much if I'd known stuff earlier. Not only for me, I could have added 15 or 20 years to my dad's life. He basically died of diabetes, complicated by malaria that he picked up during World War II. And I could have done something about that, but past is past. Don't you make the same mistake I did. Anything you do to lose weight, it's going to be harder to do tomorrow than it is today, and it's going to be harder the day after that. You need to do it. So, current goals. I want to get to a BMI of 23, 151 pounds. I chose that for 3 reasons. First is, back in the 60s, I exercised my way down to a BMI of 22.9. I didn't do it voluntarily. I came back from Vietnam, went to a 9-month school that all Army officers go to between their 4th and 7th year of service. Only instead of going to the field artillery at Fort Sill, I was sent as an exchange student to the infantry, and they were giving me holy hell about my weight. The guy next to me was a bodybuilder. The bodybuilders had gotten together, rented a storefront, and made their own gym. And he said, hey, pay my dues to the gym. I'll be your full-time coach. I'll do my exercises, but I'm good enough I can keep an eye on you. And it was like he was doing nothing but sitting there and keeping an eye on me, and it was grueling. Go to muscle burnout, 10 seconds, start the next set, or move to the next exercise. Never more than 10 seconds between that. 6 nights a week, 90 minutes a session for 9 months. I lost 47 pounds. Couldn't keep it off. I couldn't drive myself like that, even if I wanted to. But I've been there, and I would like to go back. Jessica, I know you said that you shouldn't use goals from what you did in the past. Guilty. I do want to get back there. There is a formula, supposedly for your ideal weight by height and gender. It's on Dr. Nally's website, docmuscles.com. If I run that, it comes to 150.8 pounds. And in 2017, in the low-carb cruise, during a question and answer section, somebody said, normal BMI is 18.5 to 25. What do you think ideal BMI is? Dr. Westman said 24, which is what I'm at right now. Dr. Nally said 22 or 23. 23 is in the middle of that. So for about 2 years, I've had that as a goal to get down to 151. And it's been surprisingly hard to do. But what I want to do is get there. I'm going to hold it for 3 months where I can look anybody in the eye and say, I went to where, by a whole bunch of standards, I was at what the medical community thinks is my ideal weight. I'm now going to choose where I choose to go, make an informed decision. And with that as a background, I'm not going to take any guff from anybody. I'd also like to decrease my percent body fat. It was 17 about 6 months ago. I originally had a goal of 9%. Dr. Nally says he'd prefer to see me not go below 10. That there's some hormonal changes that take place that he'd be happier if I stayed there. So I'm using 11 as a goal. I don't know where I am now, somewhere in between that, but I would like to get that down. So I do feel that I still have fat hanging a lot of places. I'm not like one of those Kenyan marathon runners that just has 4% body fat. Conclusions, keto works. And intermittent fasting and fasting can help, especially with the other stuff. I feel better now fighting cancer than I did at 412 or 370 without cancer. And be dumb like I was and wait till you're 70. Do it now. And I'd really like to say thanks to the Low Carb Cruise people. It was a real change in my education. And thank you very much. I will add one final word. When I got cancer, every non-keto relative I had except Kathleen said, "Are you sure it wasn't your diet that caused it?" And just to be sure, and because I was curious, I asked the surgeon urologist that did the operation. He said that kidney cancer is a very slow-growing cancer, which is why they can't treat it with chemo or radiation. And that it varies from person to person, so he couldn't give me an exact amount. But he said it was almost certainly there for 5 years, and he would not be at all surprised if it had been there for 10. I'd been on keto for less than 2 years at that point.
Thank you, Loren.